Hello, in this video we're going to talk a little bit about the main method, and we're going to add some more statements to our main method. So far we've got this program here. All it does is when you run it, it outputs some text, hello world in this case. Let's recreate that program, and it's a really good idea to try yourself creating basic Java hello world programs from scratch, because you want to sort of drill that into your mind and memorize it. So we go to File, New Java Project, and give it a name. Let's call this main method. So I'm going to check that I'm using Java 11 in this case. Click Next. I don't need a module, so I'll untick this and we'll click Finish. Then, without even expanding the project, I can just right click it and go to New Class. Let's call the class App. We can call it more or less anything as long as it's got an uppercase first letter and no spaces or punctuation or anything like that. The package, I'm going to call it Application. This has to have a lowercase first letter, and I'm going to tick to say that I want a public static void main, and I'm going to click Finish. Then finally I can add some code to my main method. So between these two inner brackets here, I'm going to delete the comment. I'm going to type sysout, and I'm going to type hello world again, let's say. So notice I'm indenting the code within brackets. So this code is indented within these brackets using a tab in this case, and this code here is indented within these brackets. We're going to talk more about that in the next video. Let's just run it and check it works. It's a good idea always to try running your Java projects early on to make sure there's not some misconfiguration or anything. And there we go, it says hello world, just like the other program. So let's have a look at this. So I want to focus in this video on this, the main method. So a method what we're doing here is object-oriented programming. So Java is an object-oriented language, and it's hard to understand what that is until you know what an object is. So we'll leave that for the moment and tackle it later. But in object-oriented programming languages, subroutines are known as methods. This is an example of a method. It's a method called main. And what a method is, it's a block of code. So it's a collection of statements like this one. This is a statement. It ends in a semicolon. And in this case, the main method is very special because it's where our Java program starts executing, starts running, in other words. So when you run a Java program, what gets run is the content of the main method. Now we can put more statements in here. Have a go at this yourself, maybe either pause the video or after the video. Let's add a new line, and Eclipse helpfully puts the cursor in an appropriate place usually. So we want to make sure that the statements that we write here are lined up with this system.out.print line statement. Let's add another one. So sysout, control space. This is another line of text. Don't forget those speech marks there. So if you type one, Eclipse puts in the other automatically usually. And don't forget the semicolon either, because it won't work without this semicolon at the end. Let's run that, and we should get 2 lines of text like this. Here we are. We can put more in. Let's put one more in. Let's write sysout and final line of text. You can type what you want within reason, really. And we'll run that again. So let's run it. There we go, and it looks like this. Try that out. It might not seem like much, but we're building up gradually, and it's going to get hard enough later on, so you want to really get these basics down. Notice I've left a blank line there. I don't have to. We'll talk about that more in the next video, but space within a Java program is not important. We could also write it like this, and that would work just as well. Let's run this. So the important sort of takeaway message for this video is when your Java program runs, the Java runtime environment will search for a main method, a method called main, and that's what this is. In other words, a subroutine, which has the sort of correct syntax and is called main. And then it's going to run the statements within main, and it's going to run them in the order that you see them. And this can get a lot more complicated, as we'll see later on. But for a simple program like this, we're just going to step down the statements here. They're going to get run one after the other. So first that, then that, and so on. In the sort of initial part of this course, we'll stick with just writing code here. And later on, we'll see what else you can do with methods and classes and objects and all that sort of thing. So try that for yourself. Try putting space in or no space. Have a go at it. Put some more lines in your main method and run it. Okay, so that's it for this video. And until next time, happy coding. Hello, in this video we're going to talk a bit about formatting, and this is an incredibly important topic. We're going to go on to look at the fundamental nuts and bolts of programming. But it's important that we get this right at the start. There are some things that we must get right before we really even begin. And this is one of them. So let's create a new project. Let's go to File, New Java Project. I won't keep doing this with every video, but I'm doing this just a few times because it is important that you remember it, and do try it yourself. Let's call this formatting, and make sure I've got Java 11 selected. Click Next. Untick Create Module Info, because we're not going to use that now. Click Finish, and right click the project that's been generated and go to New Class. Let's give it a class called App and put it in a package called Application, and tick to say that I want a public static void main. Click Finish. Okay, so we can add some statements to this. Now I want to just point out Java is a programming language that has been influenced by various other programming languages. And two particular influences on Java were C and C++. So in Java, if we create a statement, let's write sysout hello. So this is a statement. It's kind of one piece of code that does something. And it finishes in a semicolon. And that idea of finishing statements with a semicolon comes from C and C++. Maybe there are other languages that use that idea earlier, but as far as Java is concerned, this is a C or C++ thing. And C and C++ were two programming languages that have been around for absolutely ages and are still extremely widely used. Similarly, these curly brackets, they're a C and also a C++ thing, so they come from these other programming languages, as do many other things in Java. Now, there are fundamentally, basically two different ways of formatting your brackets in these programming languages. So one way is when you open a curly bracket like this one here, or this one here, one style puts each opening curly bracket on its own line like this. Now you can use that in Java, but I don't recommend it, because by far the most popular style in Java is to put the opening curly brackets on the same line as the sort of code that identifies what's about to happen in these curly brackets. So the curly brackets and the code within them, we call it a code block. And code blocks usually have something written before them that basically says what they are or what they do. So we put the opening curly bracket on the same line as that bit of code that says basically what's going to happen essentially in the code block. So I recommend you use this style, and Eclipse makes it easy to type code like this anyway. Space doesn't really matter in a Java program. You can put blank lines in. Let's type sysout, how are you? You can put them in where you want them, and you basically just add blank lines for readability. I am a computer. So that will run. And we could also do it without so many blank lines. On the Mac here, I can use Command D to delete an entire line, and I think on Windows probably Control D will do the trick. That's a handy shortcut. So put blank lines in, and use space generally to make your program readable. Strive always to make your program look beautiful, and look logical and readable. Okay, so we're going to talk about auto formatting in the next video, and we're going to talk about indentation, which is a very important aspect of formatting. So until next time, happy coding.